Hi, welcome to episode 5 of the Adventures of Houdini podcast. Today I thought I would speak about medication. Now, I'm not a doctor, so I'm not going to be recommending medications or anything like that. I just want to talk about how they kind of work or how they worked for Phoenix is probably more to the point, or didn't work, as the case may be. So, medication is generally not recommended until kids are around school age. And I'm in two minds about that. I think from our personal experience and the experience of other people that we have spoken to, there is this weird, pressure put upon you when they hit school age to medicate. And personally, I feel like that is just to make the lives of other people easier, not necessarily the person that is being medicated. So, kids are naturally more energetic than adults. That is just the way it is, unfortunately. I wish we had their energy, but we do not. So we must have had it at some stage in our lives. I just can't remember that far back. But it's, when it comes to specifically ADHD, there's not technically any medication for autism. It's a neurotype, it's just a way of being. So they don't really have anything that is categorized specifically for autism. I think there's things that can be prescribed to help alleviate, I don't like saying symptoms, but that's generally what they say, is alleviate some symptoms of autism. It's like some of the challenges that come with it. It's kind of like, insomnia. If you can't sleep because of your ADHD or your autism, you get melatonin or something along those lines to help with it. So it kind of just takes the edge off. It's like anxiety and depression and things like that. Those pills are not going to cure your condition. They're just going to help you manage it. So there are medications that professionals do prescribe to help you manage your autism, I suppose, or the bits and pieces that come along with it, including anxiety. But Phoenix has been on a lot of different ADHD medications, and I will say straight up, none worked. He is a child that cannot be medicated. He is currently not on any medications for his ADHD. So, if you're just starting to trial medications, slow and steady wins the race, because it is a marathon. It's an absolute marathon. It is. I don't envy you. It's not nice. Specifically for non-speaking children, it is even worse, because they can't tell you how they're feeling when they're on it, especially if they're very young and they're still learning to communicate with other methods. It's very difficult. Phoenix wasn't able to tell us if it was giving him a tummy ache. He wasn't able to tell us if it was giving him a headache. He was still, at that stage, he wasn't even really using PECs much. So when it all started, and, in hindsight, I look at it and it's like, wow, he was getting pumped full of all these different medications, and that probably hindered his ability to communicate and learn to communicate effectively early on, because, if you're a zombie, what are you going to do, really? And saying that, he was never medicated to a zombie state. That was something that I was like, no, that's not going to happen. But what I mean by that is you would feel that way, your mind would be quite foggy. I've been on medications before, and you can function and everything, but you just feel blah. You just don't want to do anything. And so, trying to push yourself to then communicate on top of it, it's just, no thanks. But yeah, he's been on a lot of different medications, and there were a lot of different side effects for him with things like stimulants that are often used for ADHD. He would have a paradoxical effect, which is the opposite to what is expected. So if it's expected to calm you down, it will make you manic. And he pretty much had that response with every single medication he tried. And to me, that was a way of his body saying, this is wrong. This is not what I need. And for the longest time, because we were so new to it, and I mean, when your child's first diagnosed, you're listening to everything everyone says like it's gospel. You don't question it because they're the professionals, they're the healthcare providers. And so you don't question it. You go, well, it must be right because these people know what they're doing. And they do know what they're doing, but they don't know your child like you do. They don't get to observe your child 24/7. That's something that I really push with doctors and professionals now. I know my child better than anyone else on this planet. And when it comes to who is the expert in my child, it is me. It is nobody else. So that is something that you really need to have people acknowledge, because that is the truth. You are the expert of your own child, and that is always going to be the case. So we're not doctors, we don't know much about these medications, but the thing is, I found whenever we were prescribed a medication for Phoenix, we weren't actually given all the information. And it wasn't until I would proactively go out of my way to dig about these medications that I would find out what the side effects were and the risks were and things like that. And I am not anti-medication by any means. Lots of people need it. And if it works for your kid, that is fantastic. Like, stick with it. If it's doing something and it's helping, then that's amazing. I wish there was something to help Phoenix with his ADHD and specifically impulse control, but there just isn't for him. And I have people all the time go, oh, there must be something out there. There's so many different options. I don't know how many options we've tried now. At least 12. And that is not an exaggeration. He's tried stimulants, he's tried non-stimulants, he's tried anxiety medications, depression medications, all sorts of things. And all they did was cause him more harm than good. And when we were seeing pediatricians, they just wanted to medicate. There was so much pressure to medicate him with different things. There was, one stage they were mixing a bunch of things, and I'm just like, this just doesn't feel right. My gut was just telling me that it was wrong. And it did it, I think too, because of what he was going through, and I still haven't really gotten into that with you guys yet, but what he was going through at the time when he was trialing all these different medications, that trauma that he was being exposed to, that didn't help. So he was already in that fight or flight mode. He was already in this heightened state of survival. And to then medicate on top, like a lot of these medications are designed to calm you down, right? But if you're in this fight or flight mode and something is trying to more or less impair that fight or flight mode, which is a natural response to feeling threatened or scared or whatever the case may be, you're going to fight back against it. And that's the thing, is a lot of kids on the spectrum fight against their medication, and it's because of that lack of control, that they already don't control a lot of aspects of their life, but when they feel like body autonomy is being taken away, they're going to fight back. And Phoenix is one of those kids that fought back. And so eventually, because a lot of the medication he was trialing happened during that period of extreme trauma, he could never go on those medications again, because every time we tried, even though we'd try after he was in a safe space, he's no longer in that fight or flight mode, and he knew he was safe and secure, the feeling that those medications gave him brought back the trauma. I don't know if that makes sense. It's kind of like I was talking about in the previous episode, where when I hear a song, it triggers my PTSD. It's almost like the feeling the medication gives him triggers his PTSD. So he just can't be on them. They might have helped him, but because of what he's been through, they don't. And it's kind of sad in a way, because there could have been potential to help him that way, but it's just not to be, given the circumstances. And there was only ever one medication that really helped him, and he was doing amazing on it. It still caused things like constipation and a bit of insomnia as well. That was a downfall with that one, but he was all good on it until his PTSD was re-triggered in an environment, and from then on it was like, nope, doesn't work anymore. So we had to stop, and yeah, ever since then he has not been medicated. And honestly, with the lifestyle changes and things like that we have implemented, being that like he feels safe in his environment all the time, and like there's still times where he gets triggered by things. Like we're still working out his triggers, and there's still times where we're out and about and something triggers it, and we're constantly trying to work out what it was. He doesn't need medication. He's actually okay. And that's, as I say, not everyone can do that. And like, would he be better off on some medication if it worked? Possibly. But where he's at now, he doesn't require it, and that's okay. Like, it's, as I say, I'm not pro medication, I'm not against it. Like, it's, everybody's different, and if you need a medication, you need a medication. It's no different to taking a medication because your kidney doesn't work properly, or taking insulin because you're a diabetic. If you've got a chemical imbalance in the brain, or whatever the case may be, you need that medication. It's no different, in my opinion. So I would just say to be wary and be very mindful of what you're giving your child in regards to the side effects, and also, especially for non-speaking kids, because they can't tell you what they're feeling. So I just researched quite heavily when we were being given medication for Phoenix. And it's also, the other thing that they don't normally warn you about is drug interactions. So that is something that I noticed quite quickly, because we were getting, like, Phoenix was being given multiple different medications at a time at one stage. And we were constantly trying to work out, like, which one of those was the issue. And it is very hard to work that out when you've muddied the water by putting multiple medications into the system. So it's also very beneficial to look up drug interactions, because there's been a couple of times where we've been given more than one medication for him and they actually interact, and it says don't give those two. And that's not to say that you shouldn't, but that's something to flag with the healthcare professional and go, okay, well, it says that you're not supposed to put these two together. Is it actually safe? Why is it safe when it says that you shouldn't? And, really question it, because it's your right. It's your kid. I've had a few doctors over the years that don't like that. We had one in particular that would really get their back up whenever I'd question something. But you know what? That's their problem. I take it completely seriously. I'm giving this kid something that's going into his body. I'm going to question it. Sorry. But it's not having a go at the professional. It's just trying to understand. Like, I don't understand why you would get your back up over that. Like, surely you would be like, wow, this person really cares. They want to know why the medications interact that way. Like, for me, it's an education thing. And we're really fortunate now. Phoenix has a psychiatrist that has the same kind of opinions and philosophies as me. He is amazing, and he loves to chat about this stuff. Like, whenever we have appointments, it's like, yeah, I kind of feel almost like I'm having the appointment for me, because we just chat about that kind of stuff, and it's just so interesting. I love learning that stuff because it just means that I understand it better, and I feel like it's safer that way. So, and that's the funny thing. When we had pediatricians, they constantly wanted to try medications. when we finally decided to swap to a pediatrician, not a pediatrician, to a psychiatrist, they were the ones that didn't want them medicated, and they are specifically there for medicating. And I think that also shows the different levels in understanding. Pediatricians do understand medications. They wouldn't be able to prescribe them if they weren't, but it's not their only function, kind of like a GP, you know? So whereas psychiatrists, that's their thing. They need to know all about that stuff. So if you've got a child that is trialing countless medications, I would actually recommend going to a psychiatrist, because they just know their stuff more, and it's potentially going to also decrease the amount of medications you need to trial, which also cuts the time, because that is another thing. When you are trialing medications, it's not something that you trial like, oh, we'll try one of these for 1 week and then we'll try this one for another week. No. It's like 6 months. It's a big chunk of time, and when you're a child and you are trialing all these different medications, 6 months of your life is a long time, and you're potentially missing out on things because the medications aren't working properly, they're not coping with life, they can't cope with learning, all those kinds of things. So there's a lot of things to take into consideration there, and it's not that simple. And psychiatrists generally have, more of that ability to help you, not fast track it, but just having that knowledge does help. And we have found it much more helpful to go to a psychiatrist than to a pediatrician. And as I say, when I was talking to Phoenix's psychiatrist, I asked him, how many kids are actually medicated and things, and he said, you'd be surprised at how many kids I'm actually taking off medications. He said that his job, he spends more time taking children off medication than putting them on medication, and I found that very interesting. So it just goes to show you how many children are potentially on the wrong things. And once again, he's a psychiatrist. He's not anti-medication. He just wants to work out. He's very good, but he just wants to work out what that child really needs. Is it medication or is it something else? And so medication is a tricky one. As I say, I'm not a healthcare professional. This is just my personal experience with it and personal opinion on it, in that, as you can probably tell, I haven't dropped any names of any medications during this episode, and there's a reason for that. I don't want to push anyone in any particular direction, because that is not my job. It's not something that I am qualified to do, and medication is a very tricky beast, and it is something that is very important and should be taken seriously. And as I say, I go either way. If somebody needs it, they need it. If they don't, they don't. And that is my feeling on it, from a personal level. But for Phoenix, it didn't work. And, part of me is like, that's a shame, but part of me is like, oh well, if it doesn't work for him, it doesn't work for him. But that's not to say it won't in the future when he's older. Puberty is a whole nother issue too, the ups and downs with that, that would also wreak havoc on all sorts of things. And a lot of children end up medicated at puberty because of everything. But even our psychiatrist was like, that actually kind of prolongs the process or hinders the process. So it's kind of one of those things you just need to hunker down and hope for the best. But I think that's puberty with any child. Like, it doesn't matter whether they're neurotypical or neurodivergent. Like, puberty's not fun. Like, let me just put that out there. But that's medication. It's, as I say, it didn't work for Phoenix. It could have, given if the circumstances were different, but they weren't. And so he is not medicated, and he's personally better off for it. But I know lots of people that are medicated and they're better off for that. So if you're going through that medication trial, all I can say is do your research, check out drug interactions, because that's a big one. Often you are not warned about that stuff at appointments, and they kind of just say to read the leaflet. But even then, the leaflet doesn't really say anything about drug interactions for the most part. It might do tell you the really, really bad ones, but it doesn't really go into the extent of drug interactions. So that's easily information that's easily accessible online. So that's definitely a big one. And if you can speak to a psychiatrist about medication, I find that there's a bit more understanding around it, and I guess more in-depth conversation about it, and I found that very helpful personally. So that would be my advice is make sure you do your research, check out drug interactions, and if you can, go through a psychiatrist instead of a pediatrician, because that's what psychiatrists do. But with that, I will catch you next time. Until then, be kind to yourself.